After 9 long years, Stranger Things has finally found its way to its divisive conclusion. And though this show certainly made its way to cultural phenomenon status, the show was not without major issues. The first being how long it took to produce just 42-hour-long episodes of television, and how that was hindered by the young stars of the show simply getting older. That aside, the story the Duffer Brothers were attempting to tell us clearly wasn't planned out thoroughly from start to finish. Season 1 of the show was nice and tight, just like a first season should be. Season 2 took a few narrative steps back, almost as if the Duffers didn't really know what to do with their main character after Season 1. But about midway through Season 2, the Duffers figured things out, and I thought they managed to salvage the story moving forward. Season 3, which we now know was the midpoint of the story, was an improvement over the one that came before. And by this time, I think the Duffer Brothers had found their groove, and maybe they had even gotten to a place where they had gotten some assurances from Netflix about just how much road they would have to continue and ultimately end the project. And the Season 3 finale provided the plot point that would start the show's steady dissension towards what would ultimately be the end of the series. And that brought us to Season 4, where we were introduced to a new villain, clearly a retcon, which proved somewhat jarring, but it gave us some semblance finally to exactly where the show might be headed. And this time, the story moved forward with the ensemble cast separated, which I'm not quite sure was necessary. But despite that fact, the Duffers managed to move the season along fairly swimmingly, all things considered, executing a slow and methodical reunion for its cast by season's end, with a nice and exciting cliffhanger. The world of the show now adequately condensed as we finally prepare for the final season. But the Duffers then decided to quell the momentum generated by Season 4, and specifically the Season 4 finale, by utilizing a time jump that took us almost 2 years into the future. And because of that, we had to start building momentum all over again, all while trying to wrap up story arcs for the extremely bloated main cast that still remained. And to add insult to that injury, the finale was one of the most disappointingly lackluster television events I've seen since Game of Thrones. Now, overall, I'd give the series a 75%, or a 7.5 if you think an IMDb score. Essentially a B- for a letter grade. I'll remember Stranger Things as a show that started with loads of potential, and despite missteps after its first season, found its way into our everyday conversations, not unlike HBO's Game of Thrones. But like Game of Thrones, the showrunners flew a bit too close to the sun, and ultimately couldn't stick the landing. And fair or not, these shows typically come down to one or two narrative choices that will go on to define the effort as a whole. And it's in this regard that the Duffer Brothers not only failed, but they did so in spectacular fashion.